Okay, now you may wonder what my subject is. Well, let me tell you. What I'm going to do is make these people work in English. So ask me in 2 weeks' time how we're doing.
Okay, I've chosen to work with rugby. Rugby is a team sport. It is a very tough sport. If you do it wrong, you can get hurt and get very hard issue problems.
Hi.
Hello.
So you chose the subject of rugby.
Yes, I did.
So when was the first set of rules written?
In the late 80s to 1950. So they did it because the rugby union haven't got any rules, so it was kind of free to play.
So when was the first rugby player bought?
9 years after the rules set, because the players didn't get wounds so much as before, because they didn't have any rules, so they got more value.
Yeah. Did apartheid have an influence on the fact that rugby was an official sport in the beginning?
Yes, kind of, because the apartheid was a thing that did, so South Africa was a land for himself, didn't have any contact with all lands, so yes it is.
Okay, thank you.
We have chosen to work soccer in South Africa. Maybe you already know the player Zuma. He's a famous player who has played in the Danish soccer league.
Soccer is a great way to stay out of the crime in South Africa. Many South Africans are doing sports instead of getting into a gang or doing crime.
Hey.
Hi.
Yeah, so you choose the subject African soccer, right?
Yes.
How many soccer players are there in South Africa?
There are about 4.5 million soccer players in South Africa, so soccer is a really popular sport.
Are there any famous players in South Africa?
There are a few famous players who come from South Africa, such as Aaron Makoena and Abiyanale and Sibusiso Zuma, but Sibusiso Zuma is probably the most well-known player here in the north because he's played for FC Copenhagen and FC Nordsjælland.
Yeah. How did soccer start in South Africa?
Soccer started in the late 19th, when the British soldiers took over the South African colonies, and so the Africans started playing soccer when they saw the British soldiers played. In the beginning they had many clubs and leagues divided by color of the skin. After apartheid they created one big league. It was named Premier Soccer League. Soon after many clubs were started and the townships also had a club in the Premier Soccer League. And the biggest club today is Johannesburg, and the biggest tournament South Africa ever have hosted is a World Cup in 2010, and it was a huge success.
Why is soccer so important to South Africa?
Soccer is a good way to stay out of crime. Most of the kids are playing soccer instead of fooling around or doing bad stuff. Probably 75% of all the youngest ends up in a gang or doing crime themselves. Sibusiso Zuma is one out of 100 who made it out of the townships, but many of his friends ended up in a gang or either get shot by a gang.
Yeah. Hi. We have chosen to work with the subject of
dance in South Africa because
it's a wonderful. We love to dance, and we're here to teach you a little bit about dancing.
African dance.
Yeah, African. Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, we gonna teach you the rain dance or something.
But we will figure it out later. So.
Hi.
Hi.
So you chose the subject of South African dances?
Sure. Yeah.
What surprised you the most when you researched for your topic?
In the beginning, we chose the subject South African dance because we thought it was the easiest one. because we thought it would be just like go around and look like a chicken. But later on, we actually tried to dance the dances, and then we realized that it wasn't what we expected. And the dances celebrate the passage from childhood to adulthood. Young girls from the village, from the kingdom of Lunda in Zambia, spend months practicing for their upcoming of age. And boys show off their persistence by dancing highly energetic dances.
Yeah, and the children must learn to dance exactly as taught without improvising. Before they can start improvising, they have to master the dance, receive appreciation from the spectators, and get a blessing from the elders in the village.
Okay, so are there some kind of traditional dances?
Yeah, there are, for example, the warrior dance called Agbeka. Agbeka comes from the Fur Ewe people. Yeah. Agbeka is an Asian dance and is performed at cultural events and at funerals. It's called the warrior dance because they mimic battlefield tactics, so they like stab in the air and with some whip or something. So yeah.
Yeah, and there's also a lot of different love dances. For example, the Namni dance in Ghana. It's performed at weddings and anniversaries.
Yeah, and there are also a lot of different kinds of there are also a lot of different dances that shows appreciation to the gods/spirits, especially the spirit called Kakilambe, who's a forest spirit and is summoned by using dance moves.
Okay, so can you tell us a little bit about the different kind of dance styles?
Yeah, there is, for example, the stomping dance called Natlamu, and there is also this very famous Maasai dance called Adumu, where Maasai warriors jump the highest jump, and it's like a competition to see who the highest jumper is.
Yeah, and this is just some of the different kinds of dances there are in South Africa, but we just thought these two were the most interesting, so we just only took these two.
Okay, thank you.
I have chosen to work with the Korean San people. They are the originals of South Africa. They both have in common that they believe in spiritual things and both have shamans, but still they are entirely different from each other.
Hello.
Hello?
So you chose the subject, the Khoisan San people?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so what difference are there between the Khoisan San people?
The Korean San are two different tribes. The San were hunters and traveled around South Africa to find new areas for them to hunt, and the Khoi were cattle herders and traveled all around South Africa to find new grassland for their cattle.
Okay, what made you choose the Khoisan San people?
I chose to work the Korean San because I find it very interesting to work with original people of different countries, so that's why.
Okay, are there any stories or other things that show how the Khoisan San people live?
Yeah, if you go down south, you can go down the Drakensbergen caves, and there's big paintings, cave paintings that from the Khoisan San, and it wasn't the Khoisan San who painted it themselves. It was their shaman, the spiritual leader, who could foresee future, cure sick, and such stuff.
Okay.
I've chosen to work the Zulu Kingdom, or the Zulu Empire as it also known for. The Zulu Kingdom was a big tribe or small kingdom when the Englishmen came to South Africa in the 18th century.
Hi.
Hi.
So you chose the subject of the Zulu Kingdom.
Yes, I did.
What was the Zulu Kingdom?
The Zulu Kingdom was a monarchy in the 19th century. It was very Vi prøver det igen. Ja, vi skal lige finde ud af,
Okay, så bare lad mig stoppe den, så kan jeg bare.
Det var det, jeg sagde, jeg skulle ikke fast for det igennem.
Det gør vi også. Ellers havde I snakket, så I hørte det.
Hvordan starter jeg bare nu, Eliane? Eller hvad gør vi nu?
Så starter jeg bare forfra.
Nå, okay.
Okay, er der stille?
Ja.
Hi.
Hi.
So you chose the subject of the Zulu Kingdom.
Yes, I did.
And what was the Zulu Kingdom?
The Zulu Kingdom was monarchy in the 19th century, which was led by Shaka Singh Sakona. In the 19th century, all over South Africa, there was many small tribes, and one of them was the Zulu Kingdom, or the Zulus as they were called before they became big. In the 19th century, the tribes fought against each other, and when one of the parts won, they gave the other part two opportunities. Either they could join the winning tribe or they could get killed. So most of them chose to get into the other tribe. And that was why the Zulu Kingdom became big. They was led, as I said before, by Shaka Singh Sakona, which was a brutal king and the first king of the Zulu Kingdom. It was maybe because of that he got killed by his brother. The Zulu Kingdom, they lived at the Indian Ocean in the east of South Africa, and that's not much else to say about the Zulu Kingdom.
Okay, so how was it to live in the Zulu Kingdom?
It was hard and it was brutal under the Shaka Singh Sakona, and they had bad living conditions, and the lands were all ruled by the military of the Zulus. So, and they were Christian and they were very religious in the Christianity, and they was very respected at the Boers and the Englishmen because they had come from nothing, and then they became very, very big. And also from the other tribes, they had a lot of respect from them.
Okay, so did the Zulu Kingdom fight many wars?
Yes, they did. And as I said before, the Zulu Kingdom fought a lot of wars against the tribes, the small tribes around them, because they could get bigger if they won the tribe wars, and then they could become even stronger. They also fought against the Boers and Englishmen when they came to South Africa. Because of that, they were seen as the defender of the original people of South Africa. They fought a war against the Boers because the Boers were moving away because of the Great Trek, where the Englishmen came to South Africa, and the Boers moved to not go into war against the Englishmen. And they came into the area of the Zulu Kingdom and wanted to take the land from them. But the Zulu Kingdom did not like that, and they just attacked the Boers in a big war they had against each other. The Boers won the war because of their big weapons they had, and they were many more than the Zulu Kingdom. But they couldn't eliminate the Zulu Kingdom. They also fought against the Englishmen in what we call the Anglo-Zulu War, where the Englishmen tried to take the land from the Zulus after the Boers had not success with it. The Englishmen had 1,500 men, and the Zulus had 20,000 men, and they fought it in the mountains where the Zulus was hiding in some behind the mountains, then come around and jump onto the Englishmen. But 10,000 of the Zulus died because of the great weapons they had, the Englishmen, and all the Englishmen died. After that, the Englishmen took revenge and came with a lot of more than, I think, about 5,000 to this, about 20,000 Zulus, and then the Zulu Kingdom lost it all. They lost the war and they lost the big kingdom, and were nowhere to be seen.
So did the Zulu Kingdom get totally eliminated, or do they still live? Or?
They still live today. The Zulu Kingdom became Zulu people, and the Zulu people speak isiZulu, which also is one of the official languages of South Africa, and they live all over South Africa today. Most of them live in the Zulu lands, which is called KwaZulu-Natal, which is at the Indian Ocean to the east, where also the Zulu Kingdom had been. There are about 11 million Zulus in South Africa today, and they also are other places on the African continent. They are in Zambia, in Congo, and other places in the African country.
Okay, thank you.
We are working with the tribes and the tribe wars.
Yes. In the tribes there is a lot of music like African drums that has a good rhythm, so they can dance around a fire pit or something, so they are happy.
And we're also working with the wars between the white people and the black people, or more specific the Dutch and the Englishmen.
Hey!
Hey!
Yeah, you choose the subject music, the Boros and tribes, right?
Yeah.
True.
What kind of music were they making?
They play a lot of drum in the tribes at the evening to dance around the fire pit.
Super. What started the Boros Wars?
What started the Boer Wars was two reasons. The first was the desire to control the trade routes to India, and the second one was a discovery of a huge diamond deposit in Kimberley.
What did they play? Like, why did they play music?
To honor the gods and bring good luck in the next great battle.
What about the tribes?
Well, there were a lot of tribes who fought each other to conquer land. Yeah, there were a lot of tribes. For example, the Maasai, people who were great warriors and fighters, who won a lot of battles. There were the Pygmies, who were tiny people, and the Zulus, and a lot of other, yeah.
Thank you.
We have chosen to work with the musician Rodriguez. He is a musician from Detroit in the USA.
He became very famous in South Africa without knowing it, and the South African people thought he was dead, but he wasn't.
He went for a tournée in South Africa, and we are going to play some music by Rodriguez, and then we try to explain his lyrics.
So you chose the subject music.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about Rodriguez's history?
Yes, Sixto Das Rodriguez was born the 10th July 1942, and his parents were working class, and his father was an immigrant who had come to the US from Mexico in the 1920s, and his mother was also a Mexican immigrant. He is a Mexican-American folk musician based in Detroit, Mexico, and Sixto Das Rodriguez, also called the Sugar Man, and he is still a much known artist. In the 1990s, South African fans managed to seek out and contact him, which led to an unexpected revival of his musical career. The story is told in the 2012 Academy Award-winning documentary film Searching for Sugar Man, which also have helping give Rodriguez a main show of his fame in his native life.
Okay, what about his career?
Yeah, his work became extremely influential and successful in South Africa, and he's released 4 studio albums and 6 singles. And yeah, the only place he really sold any albums was actually in South Africa, but he didn't know he sold any records at all. Well, yeah. So he did not make any money out of it, actually. And when the guys from South Africa found Rodriguez and told him he was very famous, he thought it was a joke, but it was not. Yeah.
Okay, can you tell us a little bit about his music?
Yes, the music he plays got a genre named American folk music. The song Sugar Man is a folk music song, but he's also playing some rock and some psychedelic rock. And but the folk music is more than a tradition than entertainment, and the folk song that date so far back they can be considered in oral histories. And certainly in America, songs by traditional folk singers like Pete Belly and Guthrie tell stories that often don't even appear in history books. And Rodriguez is often taking some political stance on the cruelties in the city poor.
I have chosen the subject of traditional religions of South Africa, and that's something about, you know, Unkulunkulu, who's the first man on earth, and the earth, who is a woman who drags into himself when it's dry, and grow and get beautiful and something when it rains, so, and, you know, something like that. Traditional religions.
Hi.
Hi.
Yeah, so you choose the subject traditional religions of South Africa, right?
Yes, I did.
What made you choose this subject?
Well, I chose that subject because religions represent so much of the country that it is in, and the religions of a country is not only important for the youth, but it's also one of the things that has shaped that country into the country that it is today. And religions, especially traditional religions, are very exciting because they are so different in every culture and every country. And also the spirit of that country does really show in the mythology and the legends of that particular country, so to speak.
What does those religions have to say about life?
Well, for those who believe in those religions, everything is life. The earth is a beautiful woman who lies deep in the ground when it's dry, but as soon as the rain falls, she awakens and crawl up to the surface of earth and bring beauty and life to everything. And the trees are alive, and they can either choose to help you, you know, make you find the way, or they can grab you and make you fall, or they can eat you, so be nice to the trees. And yeah, it's just everything for them, and they celebrate life in so many ways, and also their ancestors are not even really dead, because even though they died, they still live on for many years amongst the living. They just cannot be seen. So everything is life. Yeah, life is everything.
What do they say about death then?
As I said before, life is everything for those believers. So of course, death is a huge part of it too. And there's actually a legend about why death exists. And it goes like this. The ancestor of all people and the creator of everything, called Unkulunkulu, had just made everything, you know, created the earth and created the people and the trees and everything. And he decided that he would tell his people that they had immortality, you know, that they will live on forever. So he sent an animal out to tell them that. But that animal was really slow. So he got really mad at that animal and sent another animal out to tell them that death was coming for them. And that animal was incredibly fast. And the animal of life never got to tell them that they had immortality before the animal of death had told them that death was coming for them. And as soon as it told them that death was coming for them, death arrived and started slaying people and killing things and everybody. And death has stayed ever since.
Okay, thank you.
I will paint a picture of the beautiful savannah and an elephant in the savannah.
Hello.
Hello.
So you chose the subject painting.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about what's on the picture?
Yes. An elephant and a tree and a background. Yes.
Okay. What's on the picture took longest time to paint?
The background.
Why?
Because I used many different colors.
Okay. Thank you.
Ja, så bare begynde. Okay, I have chosen to draw the South African savannah because I think it's so beautiful, and I would like to paint some of the animals because they are beautiful too.
Hello.
Hi.
So you chose the subject painting.
Yep. I paint the savannah.
Why?
Because I think the savannah is very beautiful, and I think that's the only reason.
Did you learn something?
I learned some of the names on the trees, like the cassia tree, this one, and that's a very common tree. So whenever people see a picture of the South Africa savannah, they know how it looks like. And the baobab tree is a really big tree, not very pretty, but very big.
Okay.
I have chosen the South African film industry and their directors. So I will work with some of the most famous of them.
Hi.
Hi.
So you chose the subject film industry of South Africa.
Yes, I did.
Why did you choose that subject?
I chose it because it's a huge part of modern culture and as well in South Africa. So.
Yeah, and what did you learn?
I learned a lot about their actors and actresses and the directors. Like Abba Eben, he is a famous actor from Cape Town, and he's born in 1915 in Cape Town. And Steven Silver is also from Cape Town and made the movie Beauty and the Beast in 2005.
Okay, thank you.
We have decided to work the topic Kruger National Park. Yeah, Kruger National Park is one of the biggest national parks in the whole world and also one of the few places where you can see the Big Five. The Big Five is the rhino, buffalo, lion, elephant and leopard.
It's not usually the topic we would choose to work with, but we're actually quite excited.
and we can't wait to start. Yeah.
Hi.
Hi.
So your subject is the Kruger National Park?
Yeah.
What is that?
Well, the Kruger National Park is a really, really big national park where the animals are walking wild around you. They're not in a cage, so they just live in the wildlife. And it's actually quite a big park. It's one of the world's biggest national parks, and it's around half the size of Denmark. So it will be around 20,000 square kilometers, so it's quite big.
Yeah, the national park was also started by the South African Republic, and it became Africa's first national park in 1926. And the park was created to protect the animals against hunting.
Well, isn't that quite dangerous?
Yeah, it is quite dangerous, but the park has a lot of rules that you have to stick to, like you can't feed or disturb the animals, and you can't bring your own animals, of course, and you can't bring guns, so you have to declare them before you go in the park. And also a very big issue is that people kind of like stick their head out of the window, so you have to be in the car and with closed doors all the time.
Yeah, it's really rare that people get injured or killed, but it do happen, so you really need to stick to the park's rules. It's really important.
Yeah. Well, how about the animals? There's a lot of them. Or?
Yeah, that's quite a lot. I'm just gonna go with the flow. There's 1,200 of species and 336 trees, 49 fishes, 34 amphibians, 114 reptiles, 507 birds, and 147 mammals.
Yeah. Also, the national park is one of the few places where you can still see the big five, and that is the buffalo, elephant, rhino, leopard, and the lion. Yeah, so we have also prepared a little quiz, like the Big Five edition. That is also a big activity in the hotels for children in the Kruger National Park.
Yeah, so we have created 5 poops, and each poop is from one of the 5 animals in the Big Five. So you need to guess which one is from which animal.
Yeah, and afterwards we'll also tell the right answer and kind of explain why the poop looks like it does. So you guessed that this was the elephant, and that was also correct. And you can see that because it has like the grass and greens in it, because they eat grass and greens. And also because the elephant is quite high, so when they make the poop, it falls out and splatter, and that's why it has like this shape.
Yeah, and our amount of oats wasn't that big, so the poop would normally look bigger, but
a lot bigger.
So this is the shape of the poop, but it would be bigger in real life. So, and move on, we got to this one here, and you said it was the lion, and that isn't correct. This is actually the leopard. The leopard is like in the cat's family, so they got the same shape of the cats. So, and again, we didn't have a lot of oats, so they would normally look like this in the shape, but only bigger in real life.
Yeah, and you guessed this was the buffalo, and that is also not correct. It is actually the rhino, and you can see that because the rhino has a bit more of a liquid consistency, and also in real life there would be like a lot more of these, because yeah, we didn't have that much oatmeal, so.
Yeah, and move on again, we got to this one, which you said was the rhino, and that isn't correct, that's the buffalo. The buffalo, in my opinion, looks a bit like a cow, and so does the poop. Yeah, there's only things to say that it looks like a cow's poop, so
yeah.
There's nothing really special about that.
And also, I guess this was the leopard, and that is wrong. It's actually the lion, and you can see it looks quite like a dog poop. So yeah, that's only I cannot say that much about it. It looks like a dog poop.
It's a lion poop. Yeah, it looks like a dog poop.
So.
I've chosen to work with mining in South Africa, and Africa have a lot of natural resources like gold, diamond, iron, coal, chrome, manganese, platinum, vanadium, vermiculite, and so on. And some of the mines are pretty deep.
Hi.
Hello.
So you chose the subject of mining.
Yeah.
So how did it start? Everything.
Yeah, it started in the southern end of South Africa with the founder of Diamonds in Worcester, and a lot of people, about 15,000, rushed down there to mine diamonds. But it wasn't a very lot of diamonds, so they searched around the area. And they didn't find anything, so they searched away from the area, and they found something in Kimberley. Where they found the biggest diamond mine, and that actually started the war in about 1880. Then they found gold. Here in Witwatersrand about Johannesburg, and yeah, that started another war in 1900. And yeah, that's like the stuff that started the mining in South Africa.
Yeah. Okay. So how does it work?
Yeah, in the diamond mines, you dig like big holes down. It's like open mines, and it's just holes down where you dig in the bottoms of the mine, and you need to dig thousands of tons of rock to find just some grams of diamond. So it's pretty hard to find diamond.
So, what is there to mine in South Africa?
Yeah, there is a lot of stuff, like, just a sec. They are the largest producer of chrome, manganese, platinum, vanadium and vermiculite. They are the second largest producer of ilmenite, palladium, rutile and zirconium. And they are the first biggest producer of coal and iron. So their money comes from mining.
Okay. Great, thanks.
Yeah.
We're gonna work about healthcare hospitals in South Africa, and the one thing we're gonna work about is black and white apartheid now. Hospitals, you know, in the most common sense, apartheid now, and rich and poor, apartheid now.
And rights for the black people and the white people, apartheid and now, and the most known diseases like the death is one, and how many that die in a year.
Hello, girls.
Hello.
So you chose the subject deadly disease in South Africa.
Yes.
What is the most deadly disease in South Africa?
The most deadly diseases in South Africa is HIV and AIDS.
And tuberculosis, sleeping sickness or sleeping disorder, and malaria.
Is there some symptoms?
Yeah, for tuberculosis is weight loss, nightly sweating, fever, and pains in the chest. Usually also cold blood. And many die of it every year, especially in South Africa. And sleeping sickness or disorder, also called trypanosomias, is caused by the tsetse fly, when it bites a spread of parasite. And symptoms is fever, headache, dizziness, and fatigue. And if the parasite invading the central nervous system, you get hallucinations. And if the victims don't get help, they go in coma and then die.
The symptom for HIV is headache, aches in muscles, and fever, and infections on your skin, your mouth, or other painful places at your body.
Yeah, malaria is caused by the female Anopheles mosquito, and it grows on you for like 3 to 4 weeks before you get really sick. And it's like flu-like. You get fever and pains all over your body. But the danger is with this disease is that malaria ruins the red blood cells, so you die if you don't get help.
Okay, how many die or get these disease every year?
In 2011, over 270,000 people died because of HIV and AIDS. And daily AIDS kills 10,000 people. And right now there might be over 5.5 million people in South Africa that are infected and don't get help.
And tuberculosis, there was over 82,000 who died of this disease in 2009. And sleeping disorder has actually can help the victims, actually can help very good, because for the first time in over 50 years the number of cases was under 10,000, so that's actually good. And malaria, there was over 660,000 people who died of malaria in 2010. 70% of them were kids within the 5-year-old. And global, there are over 2,070,000 people who die of it every year. And most of these cases is caught in South Africa.
Why is it a big problem in South Africa when it's not in Europe, for example?
Tuberculosis is because the medicine is so expensive, and mostly tuberculosis hits the hungry, and when affected people, let's say if I'm affected, I cough, and then the parasite will stay in the air for 2 hours. You come in 1 hour later, after I've cooked, and then you breathe the air with the parasite, and then you're affected too. And malaria is also because the medicine is so expensive, because it's like a bite from a mosquito, and you can't fight a mosquito, you know? And it's the same thing with the sleeping disorder, because you can't fight insects. They keep being there.
HIV and AIDS is a big problem because it's so easy to get, and it's mostly caused by unprotected sex. And they have a lot of unprotected sex in South Africa because they don't have the money or educations to buy condoms. Yeah.
Okay, thank you girls.
I have chosen to work the ANC, which was started by a group of lawyers in 1912 and was a big group of people who fought against apartheid.
Hey?
Hey.
Yeah, so you choose the subject ANC, right?
Yes, yes I did.
Who's the ANC?
The ANC is a big group of people who fought against apartheid. They most of the time they were just demonstrating, but they would also blow up factories and fight against police and the army. Now the ANC has been elected as government, and the apartheid government is no longer in power.
When was the ANC started? By who and why?
The ANC was started in 1912 by 4 young black lawyers. They wanted to change South Africa so that everyone could be elected to parliament and could own land, and they also wanted better conditions for black people in South Africa.
Where does the ANC stand today?
Today the ANC is government for South Africa. They were elected first in 1994, where there were a free election where everyone could vote, black people and white people and everyone. And Nelson Mandela was elected as president. In 19 2009, they were re-elected, where they fought against the Congress of the People, or COPE.